And we are live. So, welcome, family.
Peace and blessings, family. How are you all? What? You're doing great? Fantastic. That's worth giving thanks for. Even though Giving Thanks Day is coming forth, and I said Giving Thanks Day because you should give thanks every day, and don't let the negativity of giving thanks mess with your head, because they call it Thanksgiving. There's a lot of negative stuff attached to things that we know that giving thanks has nothing to do with, because gratitude is one of the highest vibrations of the universe outside of love, of course. So giving thanks is key, for in giving we can forgive and we can give forth. Thank you. I am King Obadele, also known as King Teasdell, giver and receiver of a deeper wisdom. I honor the divine in you and those who have come before us, you too, and those not yet actualized. My beloved wife, Arlene Kahet, is with me, and she's been an inspiration to my existence. If you would be so kind as to introduce yourself.
So, as he said, my name is Arlene Kahet, and Kahet means purifying light of God. And tonight we are continuing on with our reading of the prophet by Kahlil Gibran. And this time we are talking about Speak to Us of Crime and Punishment. Shall I begin?
Yeah, because and I'll take on the prophet part, and then we'll have discussion. Feel free to type in any questions, comments, discussions, aspects thereof, as it seems as though Arlene and I have been discussing these matters without your without your input. But please give us your input. Let us know how you feel.
Yeah, if you have any thoughts, concerns, please feel free to share with us, because we're not really of this mindset that we have the answer to it all. So we would appreciate your input and your thoughts about what it is that you are hearing. So yes, so I will begin. Then one of the judges of the city stood forth and said, "Speak to us of crime and punishment." And he answered, saying,
"It is when your spirit goes wandering upon the wind that you and you alone, and unguarded, commit a wrong unto others, and therefore unto yourselves. And for that wrong committed, must you knock and wait a while, unheeded, at the gate of the blessed. Like the ocean is your God self, it remains forever undefiled. And like the ether, it lifts but the winged. Even like the sun is your God self. It knows not the ways of the mole, nor seeks it the holes of the serpent. But your God self dwells not alone in your being. Much in you is still man, and much in you is not yet man, but a shapeless pygmy that walks asleep in the midst, searching for its own awakening. And of the man in you, would I now speak. For it is he, and not your God self, nor the pygmy in the midst, that knows crime and the punishment of crime. We'll pause there. What do you have to share of what you heard so far? Because I read this and I noticed that it's not speaking negatively of the pygmy, which is a culture that is over 5,000 years old, one of the oldest civilizations or cultures on the continent of Africa. Yet they were secluded from the ways of Western civilization for thousands of years, remaining in their understanding of nature, life, and living within the forest, in amongst the vibration of Mother Earth herself, which is an extraordinary task. Because if I dare take you, or you to the forest and leave you there, would you survive? Matter of fact, if I shut everything down around you right now, here, where you live, to where you couldn't go to the market or capture any of the amenities that civilization allows us, would you be able to make it in a place of survival without feeling abandoned or discarded? For the love of God is always with us, no matter where we are, no matter what our thoughts, if we are aligned with it. And you may say, but does the pygmy have such a thing as God? The pygmy did not create himself, but he is a creation. And of all who are of the created, there is some connection to creation. And that in and of itself should be respected, because they respect that aspect of themselves. That's just speaking of the pygmy, of which he mentioned here. But there was another term that was used called the ethers. Lift the winged self, only the winged. And ethers are considered the air. And it says, like the ether, it lifts but the winged. If you ain't got no wings, you ain't gonna fly. That's what I heard. Now, you can be a rocket and somebody can put enough jet propulsion behind you to where you can be lifted. But even then, you have to have some mechanism of which to be guided. The key here is to be guided. So, like the ocean is your God self, it remains forever undefiled. What's meant there is a purification process that is within the process of what is the ocean. That's why there's a big island of garbage sitting out there. Because the ocean is not going to allow all of that garbage to just continue to float within itself everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always cleaning itself off,
Yeah.
And purifying. I mean,
yeah.
No, that's what the creepy crawlers and whatnot are for on the bottom of the crustaceans.
Yeah, yeah.
They filter that stuff out, and then it ends up on the beach. It ends up on the seals and seals and things of that nature.
Again,
the sea creatures end up getting tangled up in it.
Yeah, and these are some of the unfortunate aspects thereof. Where you have the 6-pack that has that little rubber
Mm-hmm.
rubber. Well, it's not really rubber; it's plastic.
Mm-hmm.
That people just discard, and the way in which society had chosen to get rid of its waste was just to dump it in the ocean. It just was foolishness in and of itself. It should have always been filtered first before it even entered into the streams. Even the ocean itself knows when to separate the salt water from the fresh water. The ocean knows how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, isn't it? But true. Continue, my dear, if you spoke at all.
Well, yeah, you did ask me the question,
Yeah.
and then and then continue talking.
Yeah, that's me.
So, in this particular instance, because seems to be a very large portion, what he talks about is whether or not an individual, if a stranger was to come amongst your culture and be a sort of out of place in your land, and things that may be acceptable in their culture may not necessarily acceptable in your culture may not necessarily be a crime in his. And so what does he know of this? That as we get further along, in our reading, you will find that there is a question of, be mindful of your judgment of people who have committed crimes, because you were not necessarily without fault in your judgment of the individual. But I think that one of the things that is being expressed is that to be mindful that people who have committed what we would consider crimes may end up, showing us the path that we should not walk, and to avoid those particular stumbling blocks, that they are still a part of the whole, that there's still an aspect of ourself that is still underdeveloped, even in our own humanity, which that was really interesting, and also in the formation of our God self, that we are walking to that. We are all eventually going back to the source of all, but we are in this place of experiencing. And that was sort of my takeaway initially of this conversation about crime and punishment.
Okay, thus far we're going to go deeper into it, but what the song that goes like this: sheep don't run with a lion. Snake don't swing with monkey. Right?
Yes! For those of you who don't know, this song is called Already, and it is on the album called Lion King, The Gift by Beyonce, and a few other people who she collaborated with on that particular album.
Sheep don't run with lion. Snake don't swing with monkey.
Something about waiting too long. I got too much gold to try on.
Oh, that's Jealousy.
Oh.
That's that song. I think that's Jealousy. Anyway.
A Jealousy.
Yeah. But I brought that up is because here it says, even like the sun is your God self, it knows not the ways of the mole, nor seeks it the holes of the serpent. And of course, a mole is that which burrows itself through the earth's crust and lives there and comes up very rarely, because it is not a sun creature at all. It is a creature of darkness. And the snake, the sun is not going after a hole of which the serpent lives. It's not going to do that. It's not its nature. So it says, but your God self dwells not alone in your being. Meaning, in your being is the God self, but it is not the only self that is there. Much in you is still man, and much in you is not yet man. What does that mean? Well, we all are at different levels of evolution, of understanding of creation and of the created. So if one has a level of understanding, he is not to be mocked because of it. He is to be understood. And if not, you being able to understand that one, then maybe it is you who is not educated. But this is not against your being. It is to add to your being, for yours is to seek that understanding. And if they speak too eloquent or sophisticated, well, then there should be those in position to assist those who may not be able to capture the fullness of that discourse, because all things comes at its level, and sometimes these things are required to be dissected to be better understood. For it says, but a shapeless pygmy is what the man in you is not. So you haven't even come to a place of a form, but a shapeless pygmy that walks asleep in the midst, searching for its own awakening. So you have not even though the pygmy is a small human that is known to exist. But if you are shapeless, number one, and then number two, you're sleepwalking in the midst, searching for your own awakening. That's significant, for you have not even awakened. And that could even be your dream self. So it says, and of the man in you I would now speak, for it is he, and not your God self, nor the pygmy in the midst, that knows crime and the punishment of crime. Oftentimes have I heard you speak of one who commits a wrong as though he were not one of you, but a stranger unto you and an intruder upon your world. But I say that even as the holy and the righteous cannot rise beyond the highest which is in each one of you, so the wicked and the weak cannot fall lower than the lowest which is in you also. The lowest which is in you. You. Well, you are. Also. So the concept here is not only the weakest link to be understood as a factor, but even that which is to be, quote unquote, exalted of the God force is still not at its apex, is not at its fullness, because there is only one perfection. in the fullness of the whole, which all aspires to that as part of the whole, because it is what makes the whole complete. So in your completion thereof, you are part and parcel of the whole, of which you still seek, as still does the pygmy in the mist. Good?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think I actually already spoke to this.
Okay, so then I'll continue reading. And as a single leaf turns not yellow, but with the silent knowledge of the whole tree. I was just talking about that. So the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. Okay, there's a murder rate that's been an issue in Baltimore for years. And what's just spoken here needs repeating. But I say that even as the holy and the righteous cannot rise beyond the highest which is in each one of you, so the wicked and the weak cannot fall lower than the lowest which is in you also. And as the single leaf turns not yellow, but with the silent knowledge of the whole tree, so the wrongdoer cannot do wrong without the hidden will of you all. Like a procession, you walk together towards your God self. You are the way and the wayfarers. And when one of you falls down, he falls for those behind him, a caution against the stumbling block, against the stumbling stone. Aye, and he falls for those ahead of him, who though faster and surer of foot, yet removed not the stumbling stone. What's the matter with you, man? I mean, if you see that there's a stone there, okay, there's a march that we have here in Baltimore that we've been doing. And since the pandemic, it's been scaled back. And the march is for peace, to connect with the citizens who live the street life, to let them know that there is opportunities available, that there's jobs available, that you don't have to live in the hopelessness of not having the benefits that others do have, whether it be education, whether it be a skill or vocation. We are out there, and as we walk along, we see that the street is uneven, or we see that there is a protrusion, and we may have 50 men with us. But we don't be silent and don't say to the men that are behind us that watch out for the opening here, or there's a hole in the ground, or something that could cause you to stumble. You bring that to the attention of those who come behind you. And if, of course, you're walking along and there's something in the street, or even driving along, I mean, I've done that as well, but everybody doesn't. You see an object in the street, if it's safe, you can pull over and move it out of the way. Because if you don't, someone who's not paying attention could cause damage to themselves and or have an accident, which you, by theory, would be the fault, because you did not take action when you should have.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing the reading, it goes as follows. And this also, though the word lie heavy upon your hearts. Now listen carefully. The murdered is not unaccountable for his own murder. And the robbed is not blameless in being robbed. The righteous is not innocent of the deeds of the wicked, and the white-handed is not clean in the doings of the felon. Yea, the guilty is oftentimes the victim of the injured, and still more often the condemned is the burden bearer for the guiltless and unblamed. You cannot separate the just from the unjust and the good from the wicked, for they stand together before the face of the sun, even as the black thread and the white are woven together. And when the black thread breaks, the weaver shall look into the whole cloth, and he shall examine the loom also. The weaver shall examine the thing that made the thing, the cloth. The weaver shall examine the loom which created the weaving of the threads that brought forth the cloth. That's what he ought to be doing. But does he do it? Not in such a society as we live. There is something amiss. This is one of the reasons why we brought this reading to your attention. For we need to recalibrate our own conscious minds into a better understanding how we need to relate with one another. For it is proper relations with one another that brings us to a unification that brings the peace and the tranquility that should be amongst us. So there should be no murderers. But here it speaks. The murdered is not unaccountable for his own murder, and the robbed is not blameless in being robbed. My sister and my nephew, just last month, if I'm not mistaken, was robbed, but they lost nothing. Let me explain. The money that he withdrew from the bank was taken from him because, one, he had no business going to the bank that time of night in the place he went to go to the bank in the first place. Right, so we would believe. But my sister, being the older, wanted to let him know that, hey, we shouldn't do this right this time of day. And you was just at the bank the other day. Why didn't you just go ahead and take care of what you needed at that time? And then there was the blah, 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 blah. And so they went to the bank, but they was not attentive to what was going on around them when they were at the bank, because the people walked up right on them, and they were unaware. She's sitting in the car, totally unaware of what was going on. The guys walked the nephew to the car. And hey, what they say? Hey, mama. Mama. Mm-hmm. Give us that purse. And she was like, what's going on? Because, of course, she wasn't paying attention. And even then, because they had a police report, they were able to identify that these people were armed. And she clearly says that it was a big gun. They were able to recover what they lost, because even then, the cards that she did have for her account, they wiped it out. Still, But the blessing is they didn't lose in their robbery, but they gained a valuable lesson. Don't go out at night to the ATM to go get some money. They're not doing that anymore.
No, they're not.
So you come to a place of understanding that you either win or you learn. And in that mindset, you can't lose. But remember, the murdered is not unaccountable for his own murder.
So yeah, so when I hear that, the thought that comes to mind is the law of oneness, where when we harm another, when we cause damage to each other, even through crime, but it doesn't need to necessarily be crime either. Yeah. When you are unkind, when you rob, when you steal, when you do things to another person, you are in fact doing it to yourself.
Right.
There is some type of spiritual consequence to all actions. All actions. And even though you may not see the manifestation of it, if you're one of those people who are want them to suffer for their crime, understand that to even do that they were already suffering. Like there is some type of spiritual miasm of the mind that allowed them to be in a place of actually doing that thing. And that whole conception, that we have in our culture with we want them to feel the pain as much as we felt the pain, or that understand that even that particular type of mindset is a perpetuation of that caused you damage in the first place. That on some level it is suggesting here that there is a level of attraction of these particular activities to have this happen to an individual. Sometimes I think stuff happens, but
it's the thought that brings it so.
Yes.
There's certain laws that are in effect through the thinking. I give an example oftentimes of a lady in a chiffon dress. She came through a neighborhood that was considered to be of vile individuals, but in her spirit, she was a flower child. She enjoyed life. She was excited of the life-living force that was flowing through her. And so she wore that which represented that, a chiffon dress, just going along. And she's handing out flowers to people as she's going forward. And they're just looking at her like, oh, crazy so-and-so. Hey, man, ain't that wild? Look at her. Right?
But they probably leave her alone because
they ain't said nothing, done nothing to her. Right? But then comes this man who sits in his mind saying, Lord have mercy, I can't believe the community I'm in. I don't understand why I'm here. What's going on? I might get robbed. Well, your thoughts has brought it so. Next thing you know, not only did they rob him, they beat him up and kicked him out. Took his car the whole 9 yards, and he's sitting up there wondering what happened. Your thoughts made it so.
I know that...
Law of attraction, in case you didn't know.
So, I recall one time I was going to a girlfriend's home, and I was taking the bus to get to her home. Well, the thing is I ended up getting a little twisted.
You lost your way?
Well, here's the thing. I was on the bus, and I got off at the wrong place. And when I recognized that I got off at the wrong place, I went ahead and I went to the next bus stop that had far more better lighting than where I got off at, and got back on the bus. And eventually, what I will say is my girlfriend went out looking for me. I saw her in her car. I got off the bus and we rolled. I ended up going to her place. Just imagine, she just rolled up, she rolled up beside the bus, and I was like, hey.
You was fortunate to see her on top of that,
I was fortunate to see her on top of that.
And that was a blessing in and of itself, because that would have been easily something to miss.
Yeah, so what happened was, when I shared this story with somebody else about the neighborhood that I got off in, the person that I talked to said, you are the only person that I know that could walk through that neighborhood and have nothing happen to you. You're that person where the crime gets committed either after or before you get there, and everything is, already resolved. Because that neighborhood that you got off in, that's a very rough neighborhood, Arlene. I don't understand how, Well, no, he didn't say he didn't understand. He was like, you're operating in this space of of total protection, and nobody bothers you.
Yeah. Blessings, Rock. How you doing, brother? Yeah. Interestingly, you say that. I've been blessed to have been in a variety of communities just as a paramedic alone, and never alone, because we always have somebody with us on our calls, and we have access to the police if by chance we need them. But even then, I was blessed to be protected in an amazing way, because I'm there to render assistance. I'm there to show love and give a helping hand. And even when I had fallen off my horse, one may say, and through the depression of separation and life experiences, I turned to drugs for my anesthesia. Even when I was amongst them then, it was so funny. They would either ask me, "Are you the police?" And I say, "Not today, because I want that there hit." Or I would be in the community, and they would be uncertain as to whether they was to serve me or not serve me, but there was never an issue. And the time that there was an issue, okay, somebody supposedly was supposed to give me my package on the street life, and they didn't. They ran off with the money. They called. Tell you what happened. There was this section in the town to where two things happened. God is so good. Two things happened. There was a time to where we were supposed to cop, and those who don't know that I had a drug problem, welcome. But those who know me know that my spirituality is what allowed me to make it through that, because it was just a moment in time. For the type of drug that it was, I did not have a character to steal, and I couldn't. It was so weird. And on top of that, there were situations that occurred that, hey, Mama Edna, that I was protected in. I remember one time we pulled up to this community. We went on, and I pulled up. The people got out the car to cop. That's what they call it. And the police showed up, and they were all over the place. I said, "Okay, King, what you gonna do?" because they got the car blocked, they got everything blocked. I was like, okay, let me just act like I'm going to sleep. And that's what I did. Closed my eyes. I stayed right there. The people that I saw them on the curb, they had the handcuffs was being put on them, what have you. And I just stayed in the car, and I didn't do nothing, right? I just and then I heard somebody say, "Who that? Who that car? Who that?" It was Sergeant talking to one of the officers. He said, wake up, right?" They started banging on the window, and they was like, "What you doing, man? What you doing?" I said, "What? And they said, "What you doing?" And they said, "Man, I'm so tired. I decided to go to sleep." He said, "Man, don't be going to sleep in this neighborhood like this here. What's the matter with you?" And they said, hey, let this guy out of here. Get him out of here. And so I drove off, and I was like, oh, well, ain't nothing I can do for them guys. We'll find out about them later, right? And another situation that occurred where because we didn't know that this is what they were doing. The other situation that occurred was, because the stuff was good stuff in that community, that's why we came back. I'm just saying. We went to cop again, well I did, and what did they do? They called the police. They have you waiting, and these guys, they get to the place to where their supply is already down, but people are still coming for product. So they take the money, and you're waiting for them to bring the money back. Because they don't have any product anymore, they don't want to give you the money back. So what they do, they call the police. And they say to the police, we have a situation over such and such and such and such, and the people got guns. And here come all the police. Right? And these people ain't got, they can run off with the money. They ain't got nothing to worry about because the police have now showed up. And whatever money you gave to these people, it's just a smash deal. So I told the guys, when I saw the situation, I told them what the situation was. I said, the people came up, I need my stuff, right? And he was like, yeah, man, well, I'll take care of you, dude, and I just take me to the other side of town, right? And I was like, because, I was hacking. And he was like, all right, I'll take you over there, right? He said, yeah, I'll take care of you. I said, all right. And so then I said, but I want my money up front, though. And it's like, okay, but bet, I got you, right? You give me the money, I stick it in my pocket, right? And we're talking about the situation, and I'm talking about how I don't feel comfortable in this drug world, but I'm in it right now. I got to go through this, whatever it is, so I can get to the other side of this equation. So I get him on the other side of town, and he says, just hang on right here, I'll be back, right? And I said to myself, I don't know if I can trust this guy because normally I have my piece under the seat, but I left it home. And I said, but I'm going to be cool. And I'm sitting there waiting for the guy. And the dude come back from around the back of the houses, and I was like, well, that was pretty odd. And looked like he's putting his coat on. And he comes around to the passenger side, and he takes the coat, he brings the coat, puts the arm of the coat inside of the car, and he says to me, this is a shotgun, you give me your money, and you give me your money now, right? And I looked at him, and I said, dude, I thought you wanted me to take you back. He said, man, give me the money, right? And he reached over, and he snatched the money out of my pocket. And I said to him, you ain't had to snatch it. And he drew back, and he walked away. And when he walked away, he went back to where he came from. And I yelled out the window, and I said, yo, you sure you don't want me to take you back to the west side? And so he walked off, and I'm sitting up there and saying to myself, that's some weird stuff right there. I don't understand that. And I said, Lord, I said, I can appreciate life and the experiences of which we get, but I think I'm okay now. I don't need no more experiences. And then it was like, well, look underneath the seat. And I look underneath the seat, and what I thought I left was sitting under the seat anyway. But it would have been a bad situation if I had known it was there, because if I had, the way he was, I could have just easily blocked that and just took care of him and just cleaned up the car after the fact, because I wasn't going to take him back to the west side after that. I'm just saying that there was even no loss. Because, one, my piece was under the seat. Two, the money that he took was the money he gave me. And I still have my money in my hip pocket. So, you don't lose when you understand that you either win or you learn. And I learned. And the God's grace allowed me to be in that drug world for, I think it was like 3 years. And it was over for me. It was done.
Hi, Nicole.
Hey, baby. And my baby, no. She was not happy with Daddy. But just because of love itself, love brought me back home. And it was so weird because I never got involved in the legal system the whole experience. Because you either win. Matter of fact, I called the police one time because I didn't appreciate what happened, but that's another story. Crime and punishment. So my punishment was a strange punishment nonetheless, even though I was in a criminal life experience. Nonetheless, God is good all the time, and He moves forward and allows us to move forward.
So she says she wasn't, and she's glad you can now share your story.
Yeah. Blessings. So we will continue the reading. Do you have anything further?
No, we can continue because it is a little, you got some more.
This is a couple of pages.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll read this section again because basically this section that we were just discussing was discussing, what's up, John? Was discussing how we, no matter who you are a part of the whole experience of life itself, and you are not unaccountable for the atrocities committed by others, nor are you innocent because you feel as though you're not involved. So, it says, and this also, though the word lie heavy upon your hearts, the murdered is not unaccountable for his own murder, and the robbed is not blameless in being robbed. The righteous is not innocent of the deeds of the wicked, and the white-handed is not clean in the doings of the felon. Yea, the guilty is oftentimes the victim of the injured, and still more often the condemned is the burden-bearer for the guiltless and the unblamed. You cannot separate the just from the unjust, and the good from the wicked. For they stand together before the face of the sun, even as the black thread and the white are woven together. And when the black thread breaks, the weaver shall look into the whole cloth, and he shall examine the loom also. If any of you would bring to judgment the unfaithful wife, let him also weigh the heart of her husband in scales, and measure his soul with measurements. And let him who would lash the offender look unto the spirit of the offended. And if any of you would punish in the name of righteousness, and lay the axe unto the evil tree, let him see to its roots. And verily he will find the roots of the good and the bad, the fruitful and the fruitless, all intertwined together in the silent heart of the earth. Should we continue reading?
Yeah.
Okay. And you judges who would be just, what judgment pronounce you upon him who, though honest in the flesh, yet is a thief in spirit? What penalty lay you upon him who slay in the flesh, yet is himself slain in the spirit? And how prosecute you him who in action is a deceiver and an oppressor, yet who also is aggrieved and outraged? Wow. Just suddenly I got a flash of Black Lives Matter. I'm just saying. Apply that. Interesting. And how shall you punish those whose remorse is already greater than their misdeed? Is not remorse the justice which is administered by that very law which you would fain serve? You know, he's still talking to the judge. Yet you cannot lay remorse upon the innocent, nor lift it from the heart of the guilty. Unbidden shall it call in the night, that men may wake and gaze upon themselves. That's your conscience. And you, who would understand justice, how shall you, unless you look upon all deeds in the fullness of light? Only then shall you know that the erect and the fallen are but one man standing in twilight between the night of his pygmy self and the day of his God self. Oh, that is deep. That is deep. Y'all need me to give y'all something on that. Y'all go ahead and type it in the chat or something. Tell me something. Tell me something. And that the cornerstone of the temple is not higher than the lowest stone in its foundation.
You're complete.
Yeah, man.
Yep, because the next one is about the lawyer.
Oh.
So, what I would like to share about this is that a thought has come to mind. All right, so years ago, I used to attend a Unity church back in Michigan, and the teachings there really, like, kind of shifted my mental perspective about just life in general, and how I was perceiving it at that age. But there was a story that the minister there told, which was how the people were coming from the church, coming out of the church, and there was a person who was there to rob one of the parishioners. And instead of really being fearful, the parishioner said to the person who was committing this offense, they said to the person, the would-be robber, you know, I hope that you will be able to love yourself enough that you don't feel the need to do this.
That's deep.
Can you imagine? And what ended up happening was that I think the robber was just gobsmacked and ran off. And I don't know if it was a year or 2 years later, but what happened was the robber ended up coming back and actually thanking the person who had that they would have robbed for saying those words to them, because it sent them in a totally different trajectory of where their life would have been. And I only say this because, you know, like a lot of times you may not be completely aware of what the motivation is of a person who is, quote unquote, committing a crime. It could be a situation where the person, if, you know, in a situation like that, the person was robbing because that was the only way that they saw to get money so that they could feed their family, or whatever the case may be. I don't know the details of the story. And each situation really needs to be considered on its own merits, not necessarily judged, because like all crimes, you know, if we were to sit back and hear the stories of the how that the way in which that individual got to that place, we would probably be able to say, well, you know, if we as a society really were in a place of showing people the nature of how the divine laws work and how their own mind works with the creation of the things that they end up creating, instead of operating in a place of being on automatic pilot, this would be a totally different world. And I had recently come across some information where there was a discussion about the nature of the hypnotic rhythm created by music, and how that whole particular process, the people who had invested in certain music that is considered popular now, how those people were actually investing in private prisons and things of that nature.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Those people who were doing research previously knew that the mechanism of the sound that they were investing in causes the spirit of an individual to have negative thoughts and behave in a negative manner.
Mm-hmm.
And in that behavior, this is guaranteeing their investment, because they would do acts that would cause them to go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And the prison system being designed in a manner to where they're privatizing it was actually making money for people. And they were making money off of the slavery.
On both ends.
Yeah. And it's odd that these things still exist to this day. As I was scrambling over here, the book is over there. We was reading from the book The Great Prayer, of which it spoke that when we come to recognize the truth of the divine, we know that there is such an abundance of that which is given from above, of the universe of which we all are a part of in the unified field, that no one is in lack unless they think it so. And when your thoughts are in a line with the divine, your gifts and your blessings flow to you. But we live in a mindset of resistance, and we are trained and conditioned to go against the flow, because they claim to tell you that that's where the riches are, when in actuality they are deceiving you into believing that which is not true. For the universe allows the flow of your gifts when you allow the universe to do so without resistance.
So, and the reason that I even bring this aspect of this conversation up is because essentially what this particular part of the book is talking about is being mindful of your judgment. That society in and of itself has some culpability in the creation of people who, quote unquote, commit crimes. and that we should think of it more holistically instead of being dismissive and saying, well, that person is just trash because they committed this one act, or these several of these acts. Now, this is not to say that evil does not exist in the world. That's not what we're saying at all. But to be mindful that we are being influenced, that if you're not in a place of having a solid foundation, there is a possibility that things will arise out of that person that will cause them to act out of not knowing. Because there are cultures that are specifically geared towards conning people out of money and stealing, and it's a part of their upbringing. Now, so the question is, are they really evil? Are they really, are they really criminals, or are they conditioned to their are they conditioned to the way that they were raised? Is there a possibility for them to enter a different paradigm when it comes to, if they were exposed to a different reality compared to the one that they were raised in?
Yeah, changing your thinking.
Changing. Yes.
It says, "Be ye not conformed to." Be ye renewed by the renewing of
the mind. Mm-hmm.
Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be ye not conformed to the ways of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's funny, that Bible verse came to me backwards. It must have came back over here somewhere.
In addition, I do have another story. So, one of my favorite ministers to follow is Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, and he talks about this story, of his days of doing drug dealing.
What? He was like that too?
Yeah, well.
Oh, I'm gonna be famous.
Gosh, you got jokes. So one of the things that he talked about was, he recognized he was going through he had gone through what you would call his arc or his evolution, and he was being in a place of being transformed, and he was sort of coerced into doing one last drug deal.
That's the one that gets you. I'm just saying.
And he didn't really want to do it, but he was like, well, okay, well, it'll just be my last one. This is my last one. And anyway, he got picked up. The police got him and what have you. And check it out. His lawyer at the time was Robert Shapiro.
Shucks, he was able to get the lawyer. Oh well, I guess he wasn't no lowly drug dealer then. Shucks.
Apparently not. But he recalled being throughout his process, he recognized within himself, he's like, Spirit had told him, or God had told him, like, you are not going to be convicted of this crime. You're going to be able to get off, blah blah blah. But you need to. I am calling you to go into another direction with your life.
Yeah, calling him into service.
Yes, and you cannot do this anymore. And so the judge, something happened. I'm not sure if there was some type of legal complication or anything, but what ended up happening was that he got off on, I believe, a technicality. And so the judge looked at him and said, I don't ever want to see you here in my court again. And he said to the judge, and you never will. because he went ahead and he answered his calling. And since then, let's just say, he's gone through a real transformation, so much so that it was like literally like at a drop of a dime, it seemed like his life, he became somebody else. He became somebody else. The people that he lived with did not even recognize him, because he had gone through his spiritual awakening, and it happened because of a nightmare that he was having, or excuse me, a reoccurring dream that he had, where he was constantly being chased down, and when he eventually got chased down in this dream, they literally killed him. And then when he woke up again, he began to have his experiences of really seeing the depth and truth of everything that was going on around him, and being able to see the universal laws being revealed to him all at once. And so when he gets, he's talking to his family, person he's married to, he was no longer compatible with that individual. No longer compatible with
he had transformed.
Yeah,
so he became a new person.
Became a new person literally overnight. Now, not all of us go through that immediate transformation, but again,
the darkness of the night situation.
Yes. And so what we're saying is that no one is discounted because of the whatever aspects of their past that they have been conditioned to, or where they have come from, because there is always an opportunity for some type of redemption in the individual, and that we really need to be more mindful in our judgment, because we don't want to be in a place of so much judgment that the person does not have the opportunity to go through their evolution and change, and be condemned for a person that no longer exists.
Because we all are one, and in the oneness of this understanding of this crime and punishment, it's important for us to identify that we are here for the higher good of the whole. I thought it was interesting that you brought up the story, and Spirit is just telling me to share a portion of it, and we'll get into it at some other time because of our time on the clock, and we want to respect your time. That the dark night of the soul for me was a night of which it was my last journey out there, and I already knew it. And my car was stolen from me, and I was in a place of not allowing anyone else to be with me, because I was seeing the treachery that other people had with them, and there was the dishonest behaviors and what have you. I was like, man, I can deal with this by myself. I ain't got time for this. Not realizing that Satan was waiting for me on the other side. So much so to where that particular night. So I say that part to say that one of the tricks of this of the adversary is to get you alone. So he'll get you alone in your thoughts. He'll get you alone in the solitude of your own mind thinking. If your thinking is stinking, it's going to show, and it's going to reveal the influence that is injected inside of you to act unbecoming of the one who created you. Now, we'll tell that story of me. That was the last time I was out there to almost kill me. Some other time. But to God be the glory. So we leave that as a cliffhanger. Yeah. I don't know when I'm going to tell the story. It might be next week. It might not.
Well,
but we will be telling you what's going to be happening next week.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about...
the lawyer said. I think we should do both of these.
But what of our laws, Master?
Yeah.
And that's what
I think with that only being like maybe 3 pages, we can actually go into the next page and speak to us of
freedom.
freedom. Yeah, because that's only 2 pages too, and that will take us to one of my favorite lines, to speak to us of reason and passion. Oh man, that sounds cool. The whole book is really great. I enjoy it, and I'm hoping you all are enjoying this experience as well. So, without further ado, we are 7:10, and we started at 6. And
yes, I'm sorry for
it's
the
okay.
people on for the people on YouTube. I will see if I can find a way to download this video off of Facebook.
Oh, what happened?
And,
Didn't work
yeah,
out?
yeah, I didn't bring us onto the broadcast until just a moment ago.
What?
Yes.
Oh, you can find us on Facebook. Look on King Teasdell, right?
King Teasdell, or you can go to Divine Inspiration Network, The Healing Gathering, King. Well, you would have to do King Obadele.
Well, the King Obadele, that's a word right there.
Yes.
Yeah, because she didn't spell King Teasdell, which is spelled Teasdell. You type that in, and I'll show up. You see my face. I'm the only one.
And you'll see the video. You can see the video there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to see if I can download it and then upload it.
Okay.
Upload it as a video.
She got skills like that.
Yes, I do.
So tomorrow I'm still going to do my program. I have a Blog Talk Radio program. I'm reading the book, The Power of Choice, Path of Divine Royalty to Conquer Darkness. It's the ebook version, which is the first section of the book, and it is going into the depths of the understanding of sound energy. It's going into the depths of understanding the word and how words have influence, and the scientific mechanisms behind no. The scientific mechanisms behind the
You are special.
electromagnetic forces that are amongst us and between us, and because you can even influence a person electromagnetically. Our heart vibration has a energetic feel that goes for miles. Okay? And what's up, Reggie? I know that's you. I bet you it's you. Hey, there's Lauren. What's up? Anyway, I go scientific because that's how the downloads come to me, and I give it as concise as I can. That's going to be on the Divine Inspiration Network that we have.
Divine Inspiration Blog Talk
on
Radio.
Blog Talk Radio.
You can also
And
find
there's
us.
Reggie. What's up, man? That's my man.
And you can also find us on iTunes and on I think it's Spreaker. Yeah.
Spreaker? Not Stitcher?
Stitcher.
Okay.
Okay, it's Stitcher.
Right. Okay,
Excuse
cool.
me.
Yeah. And so, without further ado, we will continue to give you love, because that's what we do.
So we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, we thank God for you, and we know that wherever you are, God is.
And remember, giving thanks is what you're doing on Thursday. No matter what's attached to that, be grateful for what has happened to bring you to where you are. And in that gratitude, it will propel you into what is to come and become the greater aspects of your life's living with those of whom you love and those whom love you in return. I see you. Namaste.